Hi, welcome to the Yarn and Yarns YouTube channel. My name is Angela and all of the places you can find me should be linked in the description box just below this video. Welcome, thank you for joining me this week. As always, I really do appreciate your company, whether you have been here many times before or perhaps this is your first time watching. I always appreciate the fact that you take time out of your busy week to spend listening to me waffle on about my adventures in knitting and spinning and crochet. This week I have all of those segments to share with you, and I also have to show off a couple of finished objects that aren't mine at the very end. I was kindly gifted some things this week. I'll also chat about our ongoing cows at the end of the video too. So let's get started. I think I'll start with knitting this week. I've got one finished object to show you and one almost finished object to show you, and two works in progress. So the first thing to chat about, I guess, is maybe obvious if you've been watching for a while. This is my almost finished object. So this is the Midsummer Meadow sweater. It's an all over colourwork sweater I've been working on for a while. It's short sleeved. But I say that it's almost finished because I'm not super happy with the neckline. It's something that's been on my mind for a while. If you've watched these videos before, you'll have heard me already chatting about it. But basically it's got an I-cord bind off which sort of rolls over, but it's also quite an open neckline, which I don't mind. Just for me, I don't think this is sitting very prettily. There's a little bit of a funny kink at the edge because I dried this flat, so it's been sort of folded on itself, but it just rolls in too much. You can't see that sort of final bit of colour work at the top there, which is really pretty. And I'm having the same issue on the sleeves as well. It's rolling back quite a lot, so you can see the inside of the colour work there. So I think I'm going to take out the I-cord finish on both the sleeves, such as they are. It's only a really little it's just a little cap sleeve really, and also the neck, and just put a normal ribbing in, but hopefully that won't take me too long. So for all intents and purposes, this is now finished. I'm really pleased. It blocked out to a slightly longer length, maybe half an inch or so, which is perfect. I'll pop in a video of the sort of full length shot of me in this garment, so you can see the length and what it looks like overall. So yeah, Midsummer Meadow. The pattern was in a issue of the Knitter magazine. Unfortunately, I can't remember the designer off the top of my head, and I don't have the magazine to hand. I'm looking around, but no, I don't have it to grab. I knit mine on a slightly larger needle than the pattern called for, because the top size was just about the right size for me, and I wanted a little bit of positive ease, because that was what was shown in the photos of the garment. So I decided to go up a needle size, and I used three different yarns. So the yellow is a Rowan Valley tweed, which is a lovely British yarn. I think it's called Yellow Hammer, the colourway that I used for the yellow. The brown colour is from Bar Amu, and it's their Pip colourwork line, and it's the Parkin colourway. And the blue is also Pip colourwork, and I think that is in the Lotherton colourway, although I might be remembering that incorrectly. But all of the details will be on my project page over on Ravelry, and there'll be a link to that below. So yeah, I'm really happy how this has turned out. As I say, aside from a little fix that I need to do on the neck and the sleeves, but yeah, for all intents and purposes, this is a finished object. The only other thing I'm contemplating is, I don't know if you can remember, way back when I started this garment, I noticed that there was a mistake in the colourwork chart. So for this portion here, where I've got the sort of yellow diamonds, in the original picture of the pattern, there were little stitches of yellow in between the diamonds, which I've put on subsequently, but they're not in that first section because I didn't notice till after I'd finished. So my two options are to go back in and duplicate stitch, or I may just leave it. The reason I'm thinking just to leave it, aside from the fact that I'm lazy, is that the yoke is actually slightly different from the rest of the garment anyway. So can you see this stripe here with the yellow squares? That's not repeated at all further down. As we go further down, squares are blue in the other repeats of that same pattern. I actually think I prefer the yellow because it stands out a little bit more than the blue, but obviously I'm not going to rip out and reknit the whole thing, but it just means the yoke is slightly different. So I'm wondering whether I can get away without duplicate stitching this. I might wear it a few times and see if anyone notices, because it could look like I've just made a mistake and left them out, which in theory I did, but the mistake was not mine, it was in the pattern. But it wouldn't take too long to go in and duplicate stitch those little dots, so we'll see. We shall see. So yes, that's it for the Midsummer Meadow. The completely finished object that I have to show you this week are a pair of socks. I finished my damson gin socks, which I'm really happy to have cast these off this week. I looked on my Ravelry page and these have been on the needle since April, which is completely ridiculous. There's no need for a pair of socks to be on the needles that long. Not in my world anyway. I know there are many of you out there who are probably screaming that you've had sock whips on the needles longer than that, which is fair enough. I am not judging. But for me, well, that's just way too long, because a pair of socks doesn't take me any time at all once I get going. So again, I've forgotten the designer. I want to say Ambrose Knits, but I'm not sure. So there'll be a link to the project on Ravelry below the video. And I knit mine using Wendy Rome, which is a commercial sock yarn here in the UK. And it's a gorgeous sort of complex multi-tonal colourway, which reads as sort of like a deep plummy purple. But there are sort of flecks of mustard and also blue in the yarn. And these were a really fun knit. I don't know why they took me so long. I think it's just because they had that element of patterning meant that I couldn't just sit and knit round and round, which is kind of what I use my socks for, as a bit of sort of mindless or mindful knitting when I just want to knit round and round stockinette. So the fact that I had to concentrate a bit more on these socks meant that they languished for a while. The other issue that I had with these socks initially is that when I bound off the first sock and sewed in the picot cuff, I sewed that in so tightly that I couldn't get the sock over my foot. So that kind of made me stall a little bit. But all I had to do is rip out that sort of sewn down edge, and I just tacked the edge down in much looser stitching, and that's worked fine. So yes, that's it, my damson gin socks. In terms of works in progress, I've got two other projects that I've been working on this week. The first is a new cast on. One of my very good customers in the shop, if you're new to the channel, I run a bricks and mortar yarn shop here in Penarth in South Wales in the UK. And one of my very good customers purchased a skein of sock yarn probably about this time last year, and she was going to knit socks, and she bought the yarn into the shop this week and said that she was just never going to get round to making these socks. Was there any chance that I could knit them for her? So of course, you know me, any excuse to cast on socks. So I'm happy to knit them for her. It's a really easy project that I can have going on in the shop as I facilitate the groups and sort of in between customers. If I get a chance to knit a row or two, socks are a good one because they're so easy to pick up and put down. You don't get lost in your pattern at all. So this is the progress that I've made on the first sock this week. So I'm using some opal yarn. This is a colourway from their last year's sort of sparkle range, and it's called Opal Mit Silber Effect. I'm sure that pronunciation is rubbish because languages. And this is colourway 9672, and it's called Flash. And there's a picture of how the socks should knit up, and I think they're knitting up pretty well according to that shot there. So this is my progress on my first sock. I've popped in a marker. You can't really see it against the sort of sparkle of the sock, but I've just popped in a bold marker there to help me keep track of my toe. I put in a little bit of waste yarn for a heel. Again, I didn't choose probably the most contrasty colour, so just here is a line of grey yarn. I can see it much more easily in person than you can see on the camera. but I'm going to go back in and put in an afterthought heel, mainly because I don't want to disrupt the patterning, and because I'm using this yarn for my customer. I don't want to put in contrast heels, toes and cuffs, because I forgot to ask her whether she would like that look before I started the socks. So yeah, I've made pretty good progress. I am a little short of halfway down the foot. I've knit a pair of socks for this customer before, and she has the same size foot as I do, so it's really easy for me to work on these. I'm using 2.25mm needles, and I had a pair of Knit Pro Zings free. Actually, they were the needles that I used for the Damson Gin socks. In hindsight, I would have swapped, I think, to my higher sharps for these, because to do these sort of little bobble stitches was quite tricky with the blunt needles. So I think I would have benefited from having a slightly sharper needle to do that textured stitch. But anyway, I'm waffling for no reason. So yeah, I'm hoping to get these finished fairly quickly. I'm keeping those in this gorgeous little bag that I purchased from the Knit Tea Retreat, and I picked this up from Charlie Button Yarns, and you'll find Charlie as a yarn ambassador on Instagram, and I believe her sister makes these bags, and I couldn't resist because orange. So it's beautiful, orange and grey, one of my favourite colour combinations, and I think I chatted about this on my Vlogtober video where I showed off the Knit Tea Retreat haul, and I figured out that I could reverse this if I wanted to, if I want the orange side on the outside. But at the moment I'm keeping it grey side out. You get a little flash of the orange at the top. It's a drawstring bag, and then there's also a little orange tag on the handle, which I love. So yes, they are living in that bag. Brilliant. I'm super happy with the progress on those. It's quite nice to have a sock for someone else on the needles. I have a lot of socks, I knit a lot of socks. Yeah, it's nice to have an excuse to knit for someone else. And the final project that I've worked on this week is my test knit. This is the Caledonia sweater, which I'm test knitting for the lovely Sylvia, who is with Cherries on Top too over on Instagram. And I'm keeping this at the moment in this gorgeous project bag that was gifted to me by a lovely viewer of the podcast. And yeah, I had a project in here that was languishing, so I thought it was high time, because I love this bag so much, it was high time that I took that project out and put in an active whip. So last week I had cast on the first sleeve for this sweater, just dumping the contents of the bag out, and of course everything is tangled up. Let me try and get in some semblance of order here. So I finished the first sleeve. So the marker here, this lovely rainbow marker, which I purchased from Caroline, who is Colourful Creativity, is marking where I was last week when I showed you. So this time I have managed to finish the sleeve in its entirety. So one sleeve is done. As you can see, this garment is knit flat and then seamed at the end. I've actually left the top of the sleeve on a cord at the moment, so the pattern says to cast off, but until I knit the body, I've knit the sleeve to pattern. Until I knit the body, I don't know whether I'm going to need to adjust the foot of the sleeve for the sweater just to fit my body. So I've decided to leave that hanging out so I can easily sort of take it back and maybe fiddle around with the shaping if I need to. I've started the second sleeve. I haven't made as much progress on that this week as I had wanted to, but I'm not sure. Honestly, I'm not sure why. I don't know where the time has gone this week. It's been a bit of a funny one. But this is my progress on the second sleeve. So I'm just over halfway on the cable panel, and I think I am going to take this sleeve up to the point where the shaping begins. So I'm going to finish off the cable pattern, finish the increase section, but then I think I might stop where you sort of start shaping for the sleeve cap, and then move on to either the front or the back of the body. This section here didn't really take that long because you're decreasing stitches all of the time. And I figure that if I need to adjust the length of the sleeve or the fit of the sleeve, then I'm either going to be needing to knit a little bit more length before I start the shaping, or perhaps I might need to increase or decrease at a slightly different rate on the cap of the sleeve. So if I get to the shaping part, then I should be okay, and then I can just figure the rest out once I have finished the larger pieces of the sweater. So that's my plan for this, and I'm hoping to get the cable finished on this today. I think I've got about 20-ish more rows to do to finish that cable panel, and then this can come in the shop with me as well as the sock, and I can swap between the projects. I'm knitting this using Rowan Moordale yarn, another lovely British yarn from Rowan. It's a 70% wool, 30% alpaca, and this is the, I keep referring to it as brick, but I'm not sure if that's the actual colourway. Hang on, I'm just going to wrestle the label out of the middle of the ball. It doesn't want to come. Bronzed is what they're calling it. I have this tiny amount left from the first ball after the first sleeve, so I know this ball's going to get me my sleeve no problem. So yeah, I'm going to probably start working on this after I've recorded this episode and edited this episode. As I say, I'm a prisoner at home today, waiting for various workmen to come and fix little bits and pieces around the house, so a good excuse to sit and knit. In spinning this week, I have a finished sample spin. So last week I was chatting about the combo spin that I am undertaking, and that I had sort of reservations as to whether because I was changing my bumps of fibre fairly often, whether my skeins of yarn would look sort of cohesive. So I finished the little sample skein that I was making. It's been washed and it is now dry, and I really love how it's looking. It's got quite a bit of spring to it. I don't know if you can see the stretch there, and I think that might be the Southdown, because that's really spongy. I've not had a yarn that's sort of got quite as much spring to it, so I think I'm going to make sure as far as I can that I have some of that Southdown in each skein that I make. But here is the skein of yarn as it's looking. It sort of reads as a brown / rusty orange. It's showing up a bit brighter on the screen, and maybe that's the influence of the bright orange wall behind me. But yeah, I'm really pleased with how it's turned out. I tried a couple of the yarns in this sample that I had not spun before. So the Southdown was one. As I say, it's got quite a different texture. It's quite spongy. This is the Southdown, the yellowy bit. I don't know if you can, yeah, you could probably just about see that. So yeah, I wanted to see if I could spin that at roughly the same sort of thickness as some of the other yarns. I also popped in, there was this really obnoxious peachy colour, which is sort of over here. That was the one sort of bump of fluff that I wasn't super keen on in the basket of stuff that I'd pulled out for this spin. But actually, when it's been plied with some of the other colours, it looks absolutely fine. So yeah, I'm really happy. I'm just going to carry on with the combo spin. I had a momentary sort of like celebration when this skein came out and I loved it, and then I started second guessing myself. I was like, well, not every skein's going to look like this, and it still could be awful, and maybe it will be, but I'm just going to go with it and see what happens. I've started spinning for the next hank of yarn, and I've deliberately popped in some of the cat and sparrow fibre that has the blue, because it's the only one that's got blue, to see how that mixes in. But I'm just going to keep spinning through my basket, I think. At the end of the day, the yarn will be used for something, even if it doesn't quite go together for a sweater. But yeah, I'm happily spinning away on my combination of the different fibres, and if all of the skeins turn out in a similar vein to this, I will be very happy, and I will have a nice Technicolor orange sweater from my hand spun yarn at some point in the future. And of course, finally on to crochet. I did manage to do a little bit of crochet this week, which was good. It was better than I achieved last week. My crochet project is living in this grey bag that I made myself from some wool fabric, a linen look cotton on the bottom. And this project is my cushion cowl. It's a pattern by Anna Nikopirowicz, and yeah, this is the only crochet project that I've sort of shown off for the last few weeks, but I'm happy to say that I've managed to complete clue 2 of the cushion. So I've made 3 bobble squares in sort of different colour variations. I've got all the ends and everything hanging off, so they look a bit scruffy. They definitely need a block, these ones. So that is the first one, and then I've got this one with the turquoise bubbles, and the third one has the avocado bubbles. So I'm really happy to have finished clue 2. I'm using Rowan felted tweed for this cushion, and just as a reminder, clue 1, or part 1 I should say, was this lovely colourwork square. So I now have 6 squares in total, and I'm on to part 3, which is a cabled square. The basis of the square looks fairly simple, and then I think you kind of overlay some stitches on top to make a mock cable type effect. So I'm hoping to make a start on those squares this week and maybe have those done, so that by the end of this week I can be thinking about actually joining these together and making the front of the cushion. There's no back as such to the cushion. I think Anna's just sewn her crochet front onto a ready-made cushion, if I remember rightly. I'm not sure whether I will do that yet, or whether I might just crochet a sort of solid granny square for the back, out of the 3 colours that I'm working with. I'm using Rowan felted tweed. If I just grab one of the squares back, the purple is called tawny, the blue is called turquoise, and the green is avocado. I've got, I think the pattern called for a ball of each. I've got about that sort of quantity left of each, so should be plenty to get my final square. The final squares are just 1 colour. That's everything in terms of what I've been working on this week. I did want to say a huge thank you to the lovely Woolly Ellie, who sent me some gifts this week, which was just, oh, it was a really lovely surprise. This box turned up at the shop and I had no idea it was coming, but she very kindly, so she's Woolly Ellie on Ravelry. She has some lovely patterns in her Ravelry store as well, so if you want to go and check her out, then please do. I'll leave a link to her below. She sent me this gorgeous fellow. That face just gets me every time. I have no idea what this yarn is. It's completely fascinating. It's kind of mohairy, but it seems more dense than like the sort of fine mohairs that I've seen, but I couldn't find this guy on her Ravelry projects page, so I am not entirely sure, but he's so cute, and he'll go with Blake, who is my crocheted orangutan. So he's gonna sit with Blake. I might actually move them here and sit with my moose as well, so you can see them in the background of the episodes if I can squeeze them in. So that was one gift that Ellie sent me, along with this amazing cowl that she actually knitted from her hand spun yarn. It's just so precious. It's the BZ cowl. It's made from wool and silk, and it's a brioche Mobius. Aren't those colours just stunning? Completely me. I wore this in the shop with the label hanging off of it. I didn't want to put the label away until I chatted to you about it, because I know what I'm like. I put things in a safe place and then can't find them. Do you do that? We've all got these safe places in our house with accumulated stuff that's never to be seen again. So yeah, I wore this in the shop on the day that I received it, with the label sort of tucked away at the back. It's so cozy, and oh yeah, it's gorgeous. So this will be completely treasured. Looks quite nice with the blue in my sweater, doesn't it? So thank you so much, Ellie. I was, yeah, completely bowled over when I received your package. So very kind of you. These amazing gifts will be treasured for sure. Speaking of gifts, I was also gifted by one of my customers in the shop these amazing earrings. She's made tiny little Dorset buttons. Hopefully you can see that, in my favourite autumnal orangey colours, and she gifted them to me, so aren't they fabulous? Put that one back in. Speaking of amazing people, I want to thank everyone who has been able to donate to this channel via the Ko-fi link, and also to everyone who has liked and subscribed to the channel. I chatted last week about some of the amazing gifts that have been donated to the channel by some lovely makers, ready for our 100th episode, where I shall be hosting a giveaway. of the things that I showed last week. As I'm recording today, we've also reached 450 subscribers for the channel. That number can fluctuate, the numbers go up and down all the time, but if we are at 450 or above in the next few weeks when I get to the 100th episode, I'm also going to be donating a skein of yarn from my stash to add to that prize draw as a little thank you for everyone who has subscribed, who has liked these videos, who shared that they have been watching. Yeah, thank you all round to all of you lovely people who continue to watch and support. Finally, before I go, I just want to remind everyone we've got 2 cows going on over in the Ravelry group. I've tried to be a bit more present and active there this week, so hopefully we can get things a bit more chatty over there on the group. I have been a bit remiss checking in. I think I've mentioned before that for some reason Ravelry is the last place social media kind of wise that I check, and I have a little bit of a block on it, so I'm going to try and be better and be a bit more present in that group. So I've got the Mount Pleasant cow, which I'm running in conjunction with Ellie of Curio Yarns, and that runs until the 1st of December, so another week or so for anyone who is knitting along a fingering weight short sleeve sweater. This would have counted, but I think I started it before the 1st of September. But I finished my Mount Pleasant, so not that I'm in for a prize or being eligible for anything in that cow, but yes, mine is finished. And the other cow that we've got running along is the Whip Along. So any projects that you started before the 1st of September that you're trying to get off the needles by the end of the year, hop on over and pop them in the Ravelry threads. There's only about 11 finished objects over in that finished object thread at the moment. So as things stand, I think you've got a good chance of, you know, odds are good for being pulled for a prize in that one. And I will be prize drawing for that in the new year, first episode of the new year. That is it. That wraps everything up. So all that remains for me to say is thank you so much for joining me. I hope that you get to have a wonderful week doing some of the things that you enjoy, and until next time, great big woolly hugs to you all. Bye for now.